Good morning, DLI virtual participants. We are absolutely thrilled to have you with us this morning. We appreciate you carving out the 4 hours to spend with us. We promise to make it extremely action-packed and interactive so it doesn't feel like you're just sitting for 4 hours. A couple of quick logistical things before we jump in. If you're just joining or if you are sitting together as a team, for a lot of the work that we're going to be doing this morning, we are going to be putting you into partner pairs as well as putting you into small groups. And we want to try to divide you out from your team so that you have the opportunity to interact with some of the people from the other teams, to hear a little bit about the initiatives that they're working on, to hear a little bit about their goals. It's just another great opportunity for you to still network even virtually. But in order for us to do that, we need each person in the room to sign in on a computer. We do need you to use your name. And then if you would just do like an underscore and the name of your district. So if it was me, it might say Shayla Rexroad _ Friday Institute. And then that way our wonderful tech team on the back end who will be doing the breakouts for me, they can see who you are. They can try to work their best to make sure you're paired with someone outside of your district. So we still see a couple of districts logged in as a district. If you are just one person sitting as a district, that is completely fine. But again, if you would click on your image and rename it to still be your name, that would be great. Because again, we like to really engage with you as individuals, and we would love to know who is joining us so we can call you by your first or last name. And we also just kind of want to keep track of who we have in our groups. Also, if you're just joining, hopefully you can see on the screen the link to sign in, or if you want to access the slides first, and then you can just click on the link within the slides. We do need each person from the team to register. Please don't register just as a team. We want each person to get credit for being a part of the session. And as I mentioned earlier, access to the slides will be really critical. There are going to be links to some things within the slides that you will want to have access to in order to fully participate. So with that, I am quickly going to turn it over to Emma Bratton from DPI. She is joining us this morning and is going to kick things off to get us started with the virtual session. Emma, are you there?
Good morning. I am here. Thank you, Shayla. Want to welcome everyone to our final capacity building support session, but just because it's our last session doesn't mean that the work won't continue. We're excited to see what you folks are doing with personalized learning. It continues to gain momentum in our state and districts and schools. So we are looking forward to seeing that impact for our students. I think we'll see plenty of you at our NC Ties conference next week as well, so it will be great to connect with you that way. We have 2 opportunities that are related to the DLI grant that you may want to know about on Thursday in Hanover and Sheridan. We will have all of our innovation academies from our DLI grants presenting on Thursday. And then on Friday morning, we'll have a poster session in the exhibit hall at 10 o'clock. So if you're able to join us at NC Ties, we would love for you to come out. Some of you may be participating in those poster sessions as well. So that's exciting. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We are working on putting together our materials for our May convening and the details as we wrap up this school year. It's hard to think about that when we're still in February, but it will quickly be here. Please, again, feel free to reach out by email and enjoy your day. Thanks, Shayla.
Thanks so much. All right. So as I was driving into work this morning, if any of you have ever battled Raleigh traffic, you know there's a little bit of wait time that can sometimes occur. So I was really anxious to get in this morning because I think our entire team was just so excited to be able to host this session. We had the opportunity to deliver it live a couple of weeks ago and just got some really great feedback. But we also just had a lot of fun thinking through this session. We took a lot of the feedback, I'd say a majority of the feedback that you provided from our first session, and really tried to incorporate it into the day. So as I was driving and trying to think about how do I really express to this group just how excited I am to be hosting this virtual session with you, and more importantly, to just collaborate and engage with you, this wonderful video came to mind. So I'll play it really quickly. And this truly, I think, encapsulates our entire team of just how excited we are to be with you this morning. Oh, I'm not playing. There we go.
Okay, people, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Santa's coming to town. Oh, my God. Santa here? I know him. I know him. He'll be here to take pictures with all the children. Yeah. Just keep your receipts. 10 a.m. tomorrow. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Santa's coming to town. Yes. Oh, hi. Santa's coming.
So hopefully you are more excited than the coworkers about being with us. If you're not yet, hopefully you will be as we continue to work through the work. But we are truly, truly excited for all of you to join us and really excited to dive into our work today. A couple of things for those of you who may be joining us for the first time virtually, or it may be your first experience on Zoom. Zoom is the platform that we will be using throughout the day. Some of you hopefully have started to kind of move around with some of the features. A couple of things, you are currently muted. If you would like to come off of unmute, or if there's something you would like to share with the whole group, if you just simply pop that into the chat window, we would be more than happy to have you come forward. We just mute everybody to kind of be respectful. We know sometimes things can happen on the back end and you may not realize we can all hear it. You can double click to go full screen and then hit escape to come back out. As you see at the bottom, the mute and unmute feature. There is also the ability where you can see the images of those of you joining. Unfortunately, right now, I see a lot of black screens, and we would absolutely love to see your beautiful shining faces. I know some of you may be a little camera shy. Please don't. We would love to be able to see your groups, to be able to interact with you that way. So if you are willing to undo your video or start your video, we would really appreciate that. And lastly, you have a wonderful chat window. I have several folks who I'm going to introduce you to in just a minute who will be monitoring the chat window throughout the day. Any questions, any technical issues, anything that comes up, please take advantage of the chat window. We will also post links to things just in case you can't find something that we're talking about. So we will be heavily utilizing the chat feature throughout the morning. And while we do have Emma live, if there are things that you want to pop in there directly for her as well, or if it's just a one-on-one, as she mentioned, please feel free to reach out to her via email. Again, if anything comes up throughout the session, pop into the chat window and we will respond as soon as possible. So I mentioned that I have an amazing team on the back end who has not only helped plan for this session, but they will also be supporting some of the delivery today. I am Shayla Rexroad, for those of you who have not met. I'm one of the facilitators here with the PLLC team. I am also joined by Jackie Stevens, Emmy Coleman, and Allison Graham. Brittany Miller, for those of you who joined last time, she is an extremely valuable member of this work that we've been delivering, but her duties took her elsewhere today. So she is traveling today and supporting a group in the western part of the state, but she is with us in spirit. But she was also really instrumental in helping us put a lot of this work together. So just wanted to give her a shout out as well. The other four of us, as I mentioned, we are all online. We are here to help. If there's ever a time that you just want one of us to pop in and meet with your group privately, we have the ability to do that as well. Just let us know how we can support you throughout the day. So for those of you who were able to join us way back for session one, it seems like years ago, or for those of you just joining us for this session, I want to do a really quick recap of where we started, because we are going to continue to kind of build off of some of that work. We started our first session. I don't know if you remember, I had the images and then you chose an area, or you selected which image really spoke to you the most. And they were different images that could or could not depict personalized learning. It was really, what is your vision for personalized learning as you see it for the students that you service? Then we did an awesome written conversation activity with the virtual group. It was via Padlet. If you were here face to face, we had them spread out around the room. And again, it was just another opportunity to start to dive into the 4 pillars of personalized learning, but to also just really start to think about what are those critical elements, those foundational pieces that are important to have in place as you start to implement or continue to build out personalized learning in your district. We did explore the 4 pillars of personalized learning in the North Carolina ESSA plan. If you are just joining us and you're kind of going, oh, I'm not exactly sure what that is, please put it in the chat window. We are more than happy to share that information with you. It is really driving the work for us here at the Friday Institute as well as at DPI as we think about how do we support districts with personalized learning. These 4 pillars are really critical. You had an opportunity to go into some breakouts. You started to take a dive into learner agency, as well as starting to unpack what are the things you have to consider when you move into a competency-based learning environment. And then we wrapped up the day by thinking about how are you going to effectively communicate the changes that you want to see happening in your buildings with your students to all the key stakeholders. So not just thinking about your educators and your students, but also how will you communicate this to the parents, to the community, to the school board, everyone who has a vested interest in the success of your initiative. But how you communicate with them and what you share with them may be a little different depending on their needs and the perspective that they're bringing into the initiative. So that was a really quick recap of session 1. So as we dive into today, I actually had an opportunity to sit in on a session with Dr. Renfro, who is the superintendent in Johnston County, and he actually used this quote, and it really resonated with me, especially with so much of the work that we're all doing. So as we think about our work today, kind of keep in this perspective of insanity. You know, how often do we go into buildings and we just continue to say the same thing happening over and over again, but for some reason we expect different results? The work that we are going to be really pushing you on today is to get you to really think about teaching and learning very differently. And that may mean removing some things that have always happened over and over again and making room for those new innovations and new ideas to come into play. So just kind of keeping that in mind of as you're working as a team or working individually and you're thinking even deeper about your current initiative, is your current initiative really allowing for new practices to come into play? And more importantly, is it supporting personalized learning and really allowing your students to grow and meet their needs? So our goals for today, we want to articulate to stakeholders your why and how personalized learning can impact your culture of student learning. So it's going to be a lot of you really reflecting on what's happening back either in your school building or if you're at the school level or as a district, depending on where you fall within your initiative. We are going to continue to expand on your understanding of the 4 pillars. We absolutely know that your understanding of the 4 pillars isn't even going to happen in the 2 sessions that we're providing. But we do hope that we really start to help you dig into it. As a team, you continue to dig in and unpack what those 4 pillars mean and really start to identify where and when do those 4 pillars come into play within your initiative. And lastly, to identify next steps for implementing your personalized goal. Again, we're going to kind of revisit some of the things we did in session 1. For those of you who weren't with us, you will have time to kind of just do that reflection on your own. But continuing to think about ourselves as individuals and how are we going to continue to professionally grow so that we can be a really powerful contributor back to our teams and the work that's happening. Deeper dive. So I'm not going to read all of these to you. I will give you just a minute to read through them, but these are some areas that we're going to take a much deeper dive into today as we really dig into those prior goals. So I'll give you just a minute to read through. And if you have any questions or if there's something missing that you'd really hoped we would dive into today, please post it in the chat window and we would be happy to take a look at it. All right. Hope you've had a couple of minutes to process and think about it. Again, we will kind of be guiding you through a lot of this work today, but we also hope that this will be just kind of an opportunity for you to introspectively take a look at your own professional learning. So how in the world are we possibly going to get all of this done in 4 hours? So here is kind of roughly what you can expect from our morning into the afternoon together. We are going to kick off by revisiting those P-SMART goals that you developed in session 1. Please don't panic if you weren't a part of session 1. We'll kind of get you up to speed. You'll still have an opportunity to develop your P-SMART goal. We are then going to take a deeper dive into really defining personalized learning. We heard from several of you in the feedback from the first session that this is something your team is still grappling with. You're still kind of in this phase of you know what you want to see, but how do you really define it? And the ability to be able to articulate it to your stakeholders. We're going to have an opportunity called State of Personalized Learning. This is where it's going to be really important that we get you into groups, because this is going to be an opportunity for you to hear from other teams what it is that they're doing, what is their focus for the DLI grant, what are they feeling really good about, and what are some things that maybe they're challenged with. And it's an opportunity for you to get feedback from each other and just another outside perspective on some of the work that's happening. You are then going to have an opportunity individually as well as with your team to explore and experience a personalized pathway. Again, this was something we got a lot of feedback on, so you are actually going to get to work through a pathway. This will be an opportunity where a break will be built in, and as we get to this portion, I'll explain a little bit more, but there will be opportunities for you to kind of get up, stretch your legs, use the restroom, grab a snack. Then we will go into our 2 rotations. Again, similar to the first one, we have 2 different breakouts. You will have an opportunity to go into both of those. And then the last portion of the day is really going to be dedicated time for your team to really dive in, start to think about, you're in the final push of the year, what are those additional pieces or nuggets that you want to tackle in order to continue making progress on your grant. And this will also be an opportunity for you to engage one of us, bring us into a conversation, see what we can also do to help you continue to make progress. And then we will do a wrap up and have you out by 1 o'clock. One of the things we wanted to highlight, I know some of you have already taken advantage of this from the first session. Others, we got several emails and requests about it following the session. People wanted to know, can we use these resources in our own professional development back in our buildings or with our district? And the answer to that is yes. So anywhere that you see kind of this recycling symbol on some of the screens, that is just your indication that this is absolutely a resource or a protocol that we developed with that intention in mind, that it would be something that we model with you and help you grow as a team, but we also hope you will continue to utilize it how you see fit in order to help others within your group continue to grow and understand the power of personalized learning. If you are on Twitter, we absolutely love to hear from you. The hashtag is DLICB, is DLI Capacity Building. We would love to hear from you throughout the day, even following the day. If you're not an aggressive tweeter, but you like to follow, please take a look and see what other people are putting out there in regards to the work that's happening. Really quick recap on to the 4 pillars, just to kind of get us all in that frame of mind. I know I've referenced it quite a bit this morning, but those 4 pillars are really grounded in students each having a learner profile. For the students to really understand what are their individual strengths, what are their needs, and what does their learning progression need to look like in order for them to succeed. It's also a great way for teachers to really get to know their students, to understand their strengths and weaknesses, and to really start to address them as individuals. Students also need personal learning paths. Again, what those look like can take lots of different forms. If you've gone out and started to Google, you'll see there's so many different variations of learning paths, but really a learning path should be dictated by those learner profiles, and really digging in and figuring out what is a sufficient pace that a student can work through, what are really great high expectations, but also realistic expectations for them to succeed. We then move into competency-based progression. And for a lot, this is a really big shift in how you start to assess students' understanding of learning, and really making sure that they have fully mastered those skills before they progress on. And then lastly, creating those flexible learning environments. This is not all about the fancy furniture in the classrooms. It's really about looking at the entire space, looking at the entire working condition within a school. Everything from how administrators may hire teachers, to what roles educators play, to what the schedule might look like. It could involve the redesign of some instructional spaces. There's a lot of different components that go into flexible learning environments. And again, we will continue to unpack and kind of work through these throughout the day. If you are joining us for the first time, there is a link at the bottom to the North Carolina ESSA plan. These 4 pillars do live within the North Carolina ESSA. There's a little bit more information to help you unpack them a little bit further. I believe it starts around page 8 or 9. If you have not read through it as a team, I would highly, highly recommend you become familiar with it, because it really should be what's helping to inform and drive the work around your initiative. So to help us really think about and to kind of give us in that space of why are we all here? Not just why you're just here for this virtual webinar, but more importantly, as educators, why are we doing this work? Why are we so dedicated to making these shifts in education? And why is it so important? So I'm going to play this really quick video just to kind of get us all thinking about why is it that we are here?
I have a lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there, and then I would just start tapping. And the students in the class would look at me, and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually even the teachers got after me, and they would yell at me, and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands." So I did. I went back to class, and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, he looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me. And I will never forget it. So I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. He walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "Now, I need you to know something. You're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he asked, he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. He reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." From that moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I've toured, recorded, and played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time when somebody believed in me. And he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
So again, just kind of keeping in that perspective of we all have those students. We all have those students. We've either worked with them or we see them right now in our classrooms, that personalized learning is really what's going to do it for them. It's taking that opportunity to really develop those profiles and get to understand our students, and then help them find their path, help them find their way to succeed, knowing that how every student learns is going to be very different. As he mentioned in the video, I mean, playing drumsticks, it paid for him to continue to go on to college. And who knows where he would have been had this one teacher not taken the opportunity to sit back and look at what was happening with him very differently, and not just jump to the assumptions that he was not capable or unable to be successful in the classroom. So again, just, kind of wanted to use this to frame our day and to continue to think about how are we servicing every single student that we encounter in our building. So I do want to give you a couple of minutes. In session 1, if you recall, we asked you to develop at least one P-SMART goal, a personalized learning goal. And this was a goal for you to design for yourself. So at this time, we wanted to give you an opportunity to just kind of reflect on that goal and to think, where are you in the process? If this is your first time joining us, this is a great opportunity for you to take a couple minutes. You may not finish the whole thing right now. Again, you have access to the slides to be able to go back and really think about what are your individual goals. Because as I mentioned earlier, for your team to succeed, every single person has to continue to make their own personal growth. It's for you to really decide what is it that you're going to bring to the team that's really going to help everybody grow and excel. So with the P-SMART goal, again, we wanted it to be very personalized. Align it to one of the 4 pillars. Think about what is one of those areas that you personally want to dive into. Be very specific, make sure it's measurable, it's achievable, that it's very relevant to the work that you're doing. If it's not relevant, you're not very likely to continue to work through it. And more importantly, make sure it's time bound. Don't make a goal be a year out from now. Think about, a goal being in the next month, in the next 2 months, so that you can very quickly start to see your own personal growth. And then at that point, you just find another P-SMART goal. So what I want to do right now is I'll literally give probably 2 or 3 minutes for you just to think back on your P-SMART goal. Again, if you don't have one, now is the time to start just kind of jotting down, what do you want to build out for yourself? What's going well with your goal? What's next with your goal? Does anything need to be changed or amended? I think that's another misconception about goals, is that once you set it, you have to stay the course. No, again, that's the whole idea of personalized learning. If something's not working the way you expected, go in and change it, amend it. Be your own personal professional growth advocate. So at this time, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to give you time to just personally reflect, and we will bring you back together in 2 or 3 minutes. So at this time, I am going to turn it over to my colleague, Jackie Stevens, and we are really going to start to take a dive into defining personalized learning and starting to have that conversation individually, but also as a team. So with that, Jackie, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Shayla. So as you're thinking about personalized learning, we talked a lot about the first time we were all together back in the fall. We gave you multiple definitions, and we were very clear to saying there is no concrete one way that this looks, but we gave you very clear categories, elements that were always in personalized learning. So what we want to do now is invite you to really reflect, and if you're sitting with a team, great, or personally reflect, what does personalized learning mean to you? And we want you to define your own definition for personalized learning and what this looks like. So on our next slide, we have a brief video that we're going to play for you. And when this video is being played, there's 2 things that we really want you to think about. First, what do you see in the video that you want to emulate based on your personal vision for teaching and learning in your school? Secondly, what do you see in the video that's already happening in your school or district that you want to elevate based on your vision for teaching and learning? So 1, what do you want to emulate? And secondly, what do you want to elevate? So those 2 things. And after you're done viewing this video, we're going to invite you to have a conversation with others. So if you need to grab a pen, to jot down some notes as things inspired come to you, as anything aha or any takeaways, please do so while we play this video. So we're going to cue that video right up.
it comes down to the idea that it's not just about what the teacher does in the classroom. It's about what the teacher can support students in aspiring to do through the classroom. How do we give them what they need, step out of their way, and let them do the brilliant work that we know exists in their brain?
Personalized learning to me means that every single student has a pathway that makes sense to them, that's connected to their long-term goals and aspirations.
I guess you're not running in a track anymore. You're more running on a field, and you choose which direction you run to.
Let's meet them where they're at and frame the teacher's role as all about facilitating an experience where each of those kids can make real meaningful progress.
They are more center stage. They are not students who are sitting at their desks waiting to have like an education delivered to them. They're doing group work, they're doing hands-on projects.
Last year in math, we had a project called event planning. I never knew math could be so fun. And the other day, someone actually asked me if they would help me plan some surprise party for their dad. And I was like, I know exactly how to do that, because I knew how to create a spreadsheet and put in everything that we needed to buy and our budgets and all that kind of stuff.
We do a lot of group work in our projects, and especially because we help our peers out.
And this was a really pleasant surprise, is how good the students have gotten at collaborating with each other and supporting each other.
I think that the thing that surprises most people is about how the teachers aren't always in front teaching you stuff. You're teaching yourself.
You can kind of work at your own pace, because at my old elementary school, there was we couldn't go ahead, even though I wanted to go ahead so much.
I've learned that I'm smarter than I think I am. I'm more responsible than I think I am. I can stay focused easier.
Instead of saying, this is the curriculum that you should learn, it was, okay, let me get to know a little bit more about who you are, what you like, what you want, and then let me figure out how this curriculum can work for you.
That's just a very human desire, is to be known and to be seen and to be accepted for who we are. And that is really at the heart of a personalized learning community.
That is the most important role of adults, I believe, in any school. But we have the structures here in this model to be able to let teachers actually do that.
Even though they're kind of owning the process, you're still owning the space and the environment, and you're still supporting kids and helping kids. So in some ways, my job is very different than before. In some ways, it's exactly the same as it's always been.
Personally, I'm doing much deeper and better teaching, much more purposeful teaching, much more focused teaching, and much more differentiated teaching.
My job as a teacher is to help students find their voice and then learn how to use it. So I want them to have the habits that are going to facilitate that happening, like grit and perseverance and knowing what to do if people tell you no.
And when we think about personalized learning, it's not the computer, it's not the PLP tool that we have. All those are great tools. What it is a willingness to say, I don't know everything you need, John. I can ask the question to find out.
Pushing myself, that's what I think I'm going to take away. Because I think college is going to be real tough, but, this school is teaching me how to push myself to the limits, to the max.
Not all square roots are going to be rational.
It feels really good because, I learned all that, and I had a lot of patience with myself, a lot of improvement from 6th grade, and I'm so proud of myself.
Actually, to be honest, before I came here, I did not think I was really going to go to college and all that. I was going to go to high school, get a job.
Coming here kind of showed me that, you are something that you can be whatever you want to be, and nobody can really tell you you can't. And it's just all up to you.
No matter where you start, you can always become great.
I can do anything I put my mind to. Nothing is impossible. That if I just work and study hard, then I can get to where I wanted to go.
All right, so we really wanted you to think about, on viewing that, what you wanted to emulate and elevate based on what you're already doing when it comes to your vision for teaching and learning. So what we're going to ask you to do, we're going to put you in groups in a moment, and we're going to invite you to interview each other. And the challenge that we want to pose to you is that we only want you to talk when you're responding to or asking a question. So it would be very easy for me to ask the person I'm partnered with, okay, what do you want to elevate? What do you want to emulate? we can do better than that. So the goal of this is to ask some really pointed questions, to have some deep conversation. And we want to recognize that listening is just as important as sharing. So what are you hearing? What questions are being asked? And also sharing the things that you heard, that you saw, and that you know based on your vision that you want to continue and that you want to achieve. So in a moment, you'll see a window pop up on your box, your screen, that will give you a box to click to join a breakout session. So go ahead and click on that when it pops in, and you will be having a great interview with a partner. Some of you may be in pairs and some of you may be in triads. So ask great questions and share a little bit about your takeaways from that video. All right, folks, I know you're joining us now back from your breakout rooms. We hope that you had some interesting conversation, some great questions, and we want to take a moment to kind of whole group reflect on what was coming up as you were talking about what you want to continue doing and what you want to start doing. So I want to encourage you at this time to unmute using the icon in the lower left-hand corner to share, or post in the chat box. First, let's talk about what do you want to emulate? What did you see that you're thinking, you know, we want to do that as a school in the district. This is what we really want to accomplish based on our vision. So we have here in the chat box, and you're welcome to post in the chat. Hyde loves that students are on a field and not a track. And obviously you see in our pictures that we have on our slides, that line resonated with us as well. This isn't a pathway, so to speak. It's a wide open field. We are all in the same space, but the direction that you want to go is really determined up to the student. And that is a very different take, because we talk about pathways and we're talking about making these, places for students to go, but considering it as a field instead of a track is really excellent. We have Columbus County. We want more students ownership of their learning. We want our students to take center stage rather than the teacher. Hyde continues taking the teacher off the center stage and more of a facilitator. So you guys are really thinking about the same things. And engagement of students is really resonating with us. Those students were really very proud to speak of not necessarily what they learned, but that they could be an independent learner, that they had confidence in themselves. Tracy and Alexander has posted, I feel like goal setting is huge. If the student knows the end in mind, they're likely to work harder to get there. And that's ultimately really what this personalization is, right? Sitting down and having those conversations about goal setting, about what's coming, and really making the student also part of where that curriculum can go. Just as Sabrina from Hyde has posted in the chat, how the curriculum can be molded for that specific child. So we're going to take this time now to continue on with Shayla, and we are going to jump forward and ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Jackie. So, we all had the opportunity to hear from one school system, Summit Public Schools, and we got to hear a little bit about how they are starting to address personalized learning. But we also know from having the opportunity to coach and work with all of you that you have great things happening in your districts as well. And the form and the pace that they take may be very different, but you all are in this work because you applied for a grant, which meant you had a vision, you had a goal, you had a passion for personalized learning. So what we wanted to do now is to give you an opportunity to share out, to brag on yourselves, to brag a little bit about this is what's happening, this is what our initiative is all about, but also to have that opportunity to gain feedback from other districts on maybe some of the challenges that you have. How can you start to rethink it a little differently? If it's a challenge that's either really caused you to derail, or it's like, it's just a hurdle we can't get past, you know, you've got an entire virtual space of experts online. So we want to give you the opportunity to learn and gain from each other. So this is a protocol called State of Personalized Learning. In just a minute, you will be put into breakouts. You will most likely be in groups of 4. Again, depending on numbers, some may be 5, some may be 3. Again, we're just kind of breaking you out. Hopefully you will be with people from outside of your district. There could be a situation where there's at least one other person from your district, but hopefully not. Again, wonderful, wonderful Allison has been on the back end trying to make sure those groups are divided out. Whenever you get with your group, you are each going to have 3 minutes to share the success and to tell a little bit about your initiative, and then 3 minutes to gain input from your colleagues. This is a protocol where time is really important, and it's simply because we want to make sure everyone in your group has an opportunity to share in the time that we've allotted. So it's also going to be really important when you first get into your group for somebody to kind of step up and say, hey, I'll be the timekeeper. So when that first person starts to share, set the timer, they get 3 minutes to share. You are not bound to the entire 3 minutes. If you feel like you've kind of said what you want to say in 2 minutes, that is completely fine. But then you have a little bit of extra time to maybe open it up to the group, but a maximum of 6 minutes per person. So again, you'll get in your breakout. Each person will have 6 minutes dedicated solely to them, 3 minutes for them to share, and 3 minutes for them to gain input. But before we kind of immediately put you into your breakout, we did want to give you about 2 minutes just to individually reflect, to kind of jot down those ideas of what are those things that you want to share that you're really proud of, and what are those things that you want to maybe get feedback on from your peers. If you're sitting with your team, and you may want to just really quickly kind of say, okay, as a group, what do we want to make sure we get feedback on or we ask about? This is the opportunity to do that as well. So I will set a timer. I'll give you 2 minutes to reflect, and then we will bring you back and send you to your breakouts. What we do is we are going to move into the next portion, but during the next portion, I do encourage you to kind of come back together as a team if you were split up, and to share a little bit about what you heard from the other groups. What are some things that other groups are doing? And more importantly, did you get any feedback from the people in your group that you wanted to bring back and share with your team that may change or modify the work that you're doing with your initiative? So as we move on, this is the portion of the day where we want to let you experience a personalized pathway. Obviously, for the time that we have, it's been modified. It wouldn't work exactly the way it would in a classroom, but we still wanted to give you that experience, but we also wanted to give you the opportunity to continue to grow in your own professional understanding around the 4 pillars within the ESSA plan. So what we have done is we have developed a pathway, and I'm going to show you screenshots of what's in the pathway. If you look at the very bottom of this screen, there is a link to the pathway. Each person will need to make their own copy because there is a self-assessment in the very beginning. This is not a team assessment. It is an individual assessment. And we've just put out a series of questions to help you kind of figure out what are your strengths and your understanding of the 4 pillars in each of the areas. Like, what do you feel like you're really proficient in around learner profiles? And what are those things that you realize, there's still some room for me to grow in my understanding of X, whatever that might be. So the first portion of the pathway is going to be you taking the self-assessment and really determining where you are in your understanding. Once you have completed the assessment, you'll be able to kind of look and see and say, okay, out of all 4 areas, my weakest area is competency-based progression, or it could be learner profiles. If you look a little bit further down on the pathway, you're going to see everything's color-coded, but you will have an opportunity to see where we have given you some resources, some instructional resources. Some are videos, some are PDFs, some are guides, some are articles, some's research. It varies in what our team pulled because we do know there's so much out there. So we really tried to go out and vet some of the best resources. But this is going to be your opportunity to sit and really dive into these resources and to grow in your understanding of that particular pillar. If you finish one and you're like, ooh, I want to take a look at the resources in another area of another pillar, by all means do that. You may also decide as a team to divide and conquer the pathway. There may be two of you that both identify that learner profiles is an area that you want to dive into deeper. So the two of you may explore the resources together and then come back together as a team and kind of unpack it and talk a little bit more about it. You may decide to do one area completely as a team. You may say, you know what, let's all look at these resources and really dive in and talk about where we are with learner profiles and what are our next steps in order for us to think about incorporating this into either your current initiative or into a future initiative that you're thinking about. So again, it starts off with you personally assessing, and then as a team kind of figuring out how do you want to tackle the pathway. And then lastly, it's really a time for you as a team to sit and think through your initiative. It's an opportunity for you to really unpack, where are you within the 4 pillars? Are you seeing evidence of the 4 pillars in your classrooms right now? If not, where do you maybe need to introduce those 4 pillars? You know, if you kind of feel like, well, we're not directly addressing competency-based, but I could see where we could start to weave it in through modeling. It might be developing a pathway similar to the one that we've done, and you maybe use this in a future PD. It's, you know what, our first step is just introducing other people to the 4 pillars. So again, this is absolutely a resource that you are more than welcome to take back and share, modify any way you see fit. But this team sharing time is your team sharing time. Our team from the Friday Institute, we will be out here kind of observing. If as a team you want one of us to jump in and talk with you a little bit more about any of the resources, put that in the chat window and Allison will create a breakout where we can go into that with you and have that conversation. But otherwise, we are going to leave you to work. So you'll do the self-assessment, work through the pathway, and then unpack it as a team. This is also time for you to kind of figure out your own break and figure out, you know, you can do it as a team, as individuals, if I'm going to get up, I'm going to stretch, grab a snack, whatever that might be. So our goal is going to be, I'm looking to see what time we're at. We're at 10:32 right now. So give me a second to see. So the goal is going to be at 10 after 11. So 11:10. So if you happen to leave your space and go sit somewhere else to work, that is completely fine. But if you could please be back online at 10 after 11, we will bring you back together, do a little unpacking, and then we will start moving into the rotations, into that next phase. So again, if you have questions, please ask. If you're having any trouble accessing the resources, let us know. Otherwise, we will leave you alone, and we hope you enjoy the pathway.